My name is Rafe, and I am an XP billionaire.
Ah,
All right, welcome to the XP Billionaires podcast. I wanted to see if I'd get a reaction out of anyone. I clearly did not. Back to the drawing board.
well, I was mostly just stunned and confused. I wasn't sure what to say.
That's fair. That's fair. Maybe if I had given you guys some pre-planning on that one, I would. But a lot of these intros just come off the top of my head, so I can't give you that. I'm sorry.
No, it's fine. Like, normally they're interesting, for sure. It's just we're really like, okay, I don't really know what to do with this. It's out of left field. It's still good. It's just more, I don't know.
Fair enough. Fair enough. All right. Well, welcome to the XP Billionaires podcast. Ridiculousness aside, I'm Rafe. I've got Irene. I've got Sky. Let's do a podcast. What say you guys?
Sure.
Yep.
So we'll start with our regular introductions. Irene, how are you doing today?
I am not bad today. Not bad at all. Been a
Excellent.
nice, quiet weekend and enjoying the last of it. Like, for listeners who don't know, we actually record on Sunday nights, so just before I have to go back to work, this is literally the last thing I do before I go to work in the morning.
That's a lie. You sleep.
Okay, yeah, but like I spend the next 8 hours sleeping, so I'd spend the tail end of my weekend to entertain you.
We appreciate your sacrifice. All right, Sky, how are you doing today?
You're lucky I'm conscious.
Oh, okay. Is there a story behind that, or is this just like regular Sunday hijinks?
I am a crafter. I had a show. I did really well at the show, but now I'm very tired.
Awesome. Oh well, I'm glad. Awesome that you were successful at the very least. But now that you're tired, I mean, at least it kind of pays off. I hope.
Oh, yes.
Awesome, fantastic. All right. Well, we got another interesting topic. We just keep finding them out of the woodwork. So, and we'll keep doing it until we run out of ideas. And then at some point, we'll probably ask you, the audience. But till then, let's get down to it. In older RPG gaming, it was pretty standard to spend currency, gold, potch, whatever you want to call it, to buy the newest gear and items for your journeys. Nowadays, we are seeing a rise in crafting mechanics, allowing for new ways to improve your inventory in a lot of different ways, which has been really interesting. We've seen this more in Western RPGs typically, but they're starting to sneak into JRPGs as well. Now, I say this completely ignoring the Atelier series because that is primarily what the series is all about. But in a traditional Japanese RPG that isn't primarily focused on it, it's starting to show up more and more. So this week, I thought we'd discuss some of these crafting mechanics and their role and place within our genre of video games. So, crafting mechanics in general. Do you love them? Do you hate them? Or are you guys indifferent to the whole thing? Like for me personally, I find myself to be very indifferent about it. There's certainly not a necessity to my enjoyment for a game, that's for sure. But I don't mind them at all as long as there is a thematic purpose to the game's world and story. The way I see it, if it isn't crafting, it's going to be something else that they include. So that's totally fine. But I think about games like, Fallout, where, the world's been basically blown up and you're fending with what you have, what you can scrounge. Like that makes total sense. You have games like Horizon, where it's a tribal society, so you're living off the land. So you're gathering as you go, making your arrowheads, making your arrows, doing whatever it takes to survive. Totally makes sense to me. So I completely appreciate that kind of system. So if it's there and there's a reason for it, bring it on. Sky, what do you think about them?
Well, there's no secret here. I adore crafting mechanics. I mean, I love Atelier. I'm a crafter. It makes sense, right? Like, I drop everything for an Atelier release. And it really, in any game where I can craft, I craft like crazy. I like making and customizing stuff. It really adds to my enjoyment of the game because it allows me to put my own touch on things. Like I said, it may be something to do with being a real life crafter. My obsession with this, not gonna lie.
Yeah, you're right. That probably is part of what really makes you enjoy it.
Absolutely.
Irene, what about you?
really depends on the system for me. And like you said, Rafe, I don't necessarily mind crafting systems in games like, your Fallouts and your Horizons and your The Last of Us games, but like some games really do take it too far. And it really depends on one key thing for me, which I think kind of dovetails a little bit into our next question. But crafting mechanics can really like liven up or like add authenticity to games like Fallout and Horizon, where you are supposed to be like scrounging and living off the land and like really, managing your resources. However, I will say for Fallout, since you can literally disassemble like freaking everything, it feels a little bit less like a resource management game and more of a like just play with the like 0 backpack weight mod enabled, because fuck that weight limit. Jesus Christ. It's so terrible for a game that means that you have to be like crafting constantly and picking up literally everything. To have such egregious weight restrictions is just so fucking shit.
No, you're absolutely right. I mean, I appreciate a weight limit in a game. It does add a little bit of challenge to it. But yeah, games like Fallout do kind of take it a little too far. I know I haven't played it yet, but I know Fallout 76, that was one of the huge complaints about it, barring like a whole bunch of other complaints, and we're just not going to get into that. But
Yeah, actually, I heard on Jimquisition that apparently somebody sent Todd Howard a box of bobby pins and asked him to weigh them because bobby pins were so frequently broken that they weighed way more than actual bobby pins would in real life. So somebody sent the CEO of Bethesda a literal box of bobby pins with a note that said "weigh these," which is just like, congratulations, that's a power move. But like, still, I actually would argue that weight restrictions in most games get taken too far, and then they're not fun. I want to play the game. I don't want to spend hours managing my inventory. Like, I've been playing Dragon Quest XI again recently, and there's crafting mechanics in it, right? And I have zero problem with the crafting mechanics in Dragon Quest XI. Why? Because I never have to worry about not having enough room in my inventory for the materials I need. So I can just pick shit up and hoard shit until I need shit. It's very nice. And actually, the enhanced version on the Switch, I wanted to say the DS because like portable, has an improvement actually, where if you're missing ingredients and they're buyable from a vendor somewhere in the world, you can hit a button and it will just like cost you some gold pieces to buy the missing ingredients.
oh, I like
Some
that.
Yeah, some ingredients you can't do that with because they're not like no vendor offers them. But others it's like, yeah, it's prohibitively expensive, but you have the option of buying this material if you want in some cases. In other cases the materials are really fucking cheap. Or like you're just missing the 1 out of 2 and you only need to spend like 500 gold to buy the missing material.
Okay.
So it's actually like it really depends on your ability to actually have the materials on hand to do the crafting and your ability to get at the materials that I think really makes a difference for me loving or hating the crafting mechanics. Because like if I can't actually do any crafting, then like okay, what's the point of this, you know?
Right. No, you're absolutely right. And yeah, a lot of what you said does lead into the next question that I
Exactly.
had for you guys here. And it's really what does or what would make a crafting mechanic extra successful?
And since like I know we're changing up the turn order a little bit, but since I was already talking about it, I figured I could just continue a little bit on this
Sure.
topic. Availability of materials, I think, is the big thing for crafting mechanics, making it successful. Since I was just talking about this, so like there are games where it's like some materials are so rare that you could basically almost never get your hands on them. Well, they shouldn't necessarily be in every recipe. And I've played games where like this really hard to obtain material is actually in everything. And that often makes me abandon the crafting system altogether if I have a choice. So, like, for example, playing Final Fantasy XIV with a friend of mine, we hit level 50 crafters and we were super excited until we realized all the materials that we'd need at level 50 and beyond were only obtainable through pristine gathering points, which spawn on a timer, invisible to the player, throughout the world, and only one player gets them per spawn cycle.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah, and every recipe that we need uses these pristine gathering points. So, like, yeah, we're at the point where, like, we can't progress unless we want to invest shit tons of time or shit tons of gil acquiring these materials. So, like, we've basically abandoned it because it's not fun anymore.
Yeah, like it needs to be fun. That's the important bit.
Exactly,
Like
and it's not fun if you can't actually do it. And what are the
I
biggest impediments to not being able to do it? Not being able to get your hands on what you need.
well, yeah, and that's what was like I had that problem. This is going way back. My RuneScape days with mining. I played RuneScape in high school. Technically my first RPG I've figured out. But one of the things I did very little of, or at least as little as I could get away with, was mining. Because you'd hit the rock and there was basically a cooldown time before you could hit it again, before the thing would regenerate and you could hit it again with the pickaxe. Except you were competing with other players for mining spots. Like only one player got to hit it, just like you were describing.
Oh my god. Yeah, that's the worst.
It wasn't much better when I was a member either, because I played both ways. Like mining became this ridiculous competition with other players, and it was just wasn't any fun.
Yeah, it shouldn't be. And that's the thing. Like, for most common crafting resources, for every crafting resource you needed up until level 50, like the regular gathering points will do. And they're player independent and they respawn like for the individual players, like you can go around in a circle essentially in the area and continue to mine or gather whatever resources you need. These pristine gathering points, they show up at a certain time of day, like the Eorzean day essentially. So like I think it's every 24 minutes or something like that. That's the timer. Only one player gets them, and you're not even guaranteed what materials are going to spawn on the pristine point.
Oh God.
So, like, my friend needs, like, this particular fruit, and I don't even know if I can get it for her. I'm a level 50 gatherer, and I'm like, fuck if I know if I can get at this. And she was listing all these different, like, vegetables and ingredients she needed to make high-level food. And they were all from these pristine gathering points. All of them.
That's ridiculous.
All over the world. Exactly. So I was like, I can't actually get at these materials for you. And since I can't get at the materials, it means we can't actually do the thing that is fun, which is make the thing.
Right, yeah.
So if you make the materials so rare that, like, you can't actually get at them, and they're in everything, then what's the point? Like, all you've done is made it frustrating. Games like Horizon didn't do that. Horizon made materials pretty abundant no matter what you needed. Or, like, they had a very limited selection of materials, right? So, like, you'd have, like, your common materials that would be in freaking everything. And then you'd have, like, your less common materials, but they were still relatively not difficult to obtain. Like, I never found myself farming for materials in Horizon. Ever.
Well, yeah, and it's the same with Atelier.
Mm-hmm.
Like the only time you usually end up farming is late game, and even then they give you get a pretty good idea of where to go for things.
Well, that's
Like
the thing. Like, I know, like, oh, I need this particular, like, by the time I actually need a particular, like, material for a certain craft, like, crafted upgrade, I've either come across what I need or, like, can find one relatively easily. So I know where to go. It's like, yeah, I need this particular monster part. So if I just hunt the monsters, I'll get them eventually. And especially for the rarer monsters, they usually drop that part. Like the ones that take a lot of time and energy to bring down because they're big and scary and they're meant to be like a mini boss. Yeah, they drop the part you need. They're not going to make you fight 10,000 of those fuckers to, like, get the heart of it, you know? There's a balancing act that has to happen where it's like, I'm not going to make you do this really egregious, hard thing in order to get the materials you need. Because once you're doing that, it's not fun for the player. And ultimately, like, it's like, well, it's not realistic. It's like, I didn't play this game to make it realistic. Like, I would not want to live in the Fallout universe. I'm sorry, it sucks. Everything is radioactive, there's super mutants all over the place, and giant fucking crabs. Like, fuck that. It comes down to this, like, fundamental thing about video games for me. It's like, if it's not fun, then it's not really worth doing. And if it's not worth doing, why am I wasting my precious free time on it?
Yeah, no, I completely agree, and like we've referenced Horizon a lot. That's one of the things that I think that was done really well, because not only was it thematically appropriate for the setting, that like Aloy was able to get arrows. She was also taught how to do all of this stuff. You have that early childhood stage, so like there's the fact that she has the knowledge to do it at the same time. Just being able to craft because you're Joe Schmo hero doesn't necessarily mean you were properly trained into doing it. If there's nothing there to say that you did that, that was one thing that I think was done really well for Horizon in that regard. But
there's also light crafting in God of War, which I've just been replaying recently, folks, on my stream. But it's all done by the dwarves, right? So you just bring them the materials. And even in late game, I found like, oh yeah, I have these materials. Or like, oh, it's actually not super far out of my way to get these materials. Or like, I didn't necessarily have to go like kill a bunch of really hard monsters to get at what I needed. The game was littered with enough materials that I never really found that I was like missing out, you know?
no, of course, but like for like at the same time, like if you have one game where it's like, oh, okay, you can craft a bomb, and you had no training on how to make a bomb, yet you can just do it. Like that's where I kind of still like that semblance of realism in my crafting systems,
Mm.
where like it's great that you can make a bomb. Don't get me wrong, that you want to blow shit up, I am all for it. But if your character just said, "Oh, here's three parts," and you MacGyver a bomb together, no, not everybody is MacGyver. There is only one MacGyver. I'm sorry.
They sort of did that in The Last of Us, if I remember correctly. However, I will say that, Joel is sort of like a scavenger, operates on the fringes of society a bit, goes out into the controlled military zones where no one is supposed to go, so he would have to have a little bit of savvy. But I think what they ended up doing is, rather than like specific items, you had specific types of items. So like you'd have, or it was either The Last of Us or it was another game, but like you could collect things that would count as adhesive or fertilizer or blades. Like, like you could collect like some scissors and you would get like something that would count as blades and some scrap metal. Or like you get like a spring or something like that. Like it basically broke down the components into usable parts.
Atelier does that quite frequently. I mean, in some recipes they'll require specific ingredients, but in others they might have one specific ingredient, and then you have to have two plants and some sort of piece of wood.
Yeah, so it was like you have to have collected things that would count as blades. So like
Yeah.
if you found a box of razor blades, it counted. If you found a pair of scissors, it counted. If you found some tape, it counted as adhesive. If you found like crazy glue, it counted as adhesive. Like
Yeah.
they basically like subdivided all the shit you could pick up into categories. And you would manage your different crafting on based on the category of resource. So like in order to make a shiv, I'd need a blade and I don't know, some wood. I can't quite remember, but like you'd need a blade. To make a bomb, like a can bomb, I'd need some scrap metal and I'd need fertilizer. Like shit like that, you know?
Yeah, gunpowder,
Yeah.
things
So
like
like
that.
yeah, but like if you collected gunpowder, it would count as like fertilizer. like for the
Yeah.
purposes of the crafting system. They just dumped all of these specific household items that you could pick up into big buckets. So you could pick up like a fork, but it would be dumped in the scrap metal category. But you're still picking up a fork, you know?
Yeah.
Anyway, I think it was The Last of Us. I don't remember. It's been a while since I played that game, but I thought that was a really good way to handle the crafting system as well. Is like you can pick up all sorts of shit, but at the end of the day, there's like 5 categories of stuff you actually have to manage.
That makes sense. Sky, did you have anything to add to the question? I know you've chimed in a bit, but is there anything else?
What I think there needs to be is a combination of accessibility with complexity. If the crafting system is really easy, then there's no point. Why give us the parts when you could just give us the items? Give me something I can dig my teeth into, but is clearly explained. That, in my opinion, is the best way to do it.
Yeah, and don't artificially add complexity by just making some resources really hard to get, because that's not complexity. That's just frustration.
No. You want to do stuff like when I played Atelier Lua earlier this year, it was like all the different items you picked up have different attributes on them that you can pass to the weapon you make, for instance, or the armor, right? So you can add stats or something like that, and it gives it this strategic edge that makes the whole process all the more worthwhile.
So like Dragon Quest XI, just because I've been playing it recently, did something kind of similar but in a different vein. Rather than have you like give the equipment different properties, basically turned crafting into like a mini game where you'd have to like hammer the equipment into shape by like getting it into like this like the sweet spot on the bar, and you'd get like all these techniques, and as you progress through the game you got access to more and more techniques and more focus so that you could actually craft higher level stuff. So that was actually a really great way to add complexity and challenge to a crafting system without making it you'll never find platinum, silly player.
Yeah. No, you don't want to spend hours upon hours looking for specific materials.
Exactly.
Yeah. The most important thing I think though is crafting has to matter. Let me craft items to help advance the plot or build up my characters for combat, but let the way I craft them make the difference. It should go beyond just throwing a few items together and having something pop out.
Yeah, it should make the difference, like between having gear that's good and having gear that's serviceable and having gear that's like good.
Yeah, and when I went to finish Atelier Lelua, like what I found was that my gear was subpar, and it wasn't because I had subpar gear. It was pretty much the best available, but I had to craft it with better materials so that the added stats, the added abilities I got from the gear made the difference.
Yeah, I've saved a shit ton of money actually on gear playing Dragon Quest XI this time through because I've crafted most of my gear. And if I manage to, spit out a +3 perfect piece of gear, that lasts me for like several towns. Like I don't
Sure.
need to upgrade right away. So it saves me a shit ton of money not buying gear from shops. One of the ways I've actually extended it as well is with the Perfectionist Pearls. Is like I'll buy something from the shop. It's only a slight upgrade if I can afford it, like if I want to, and then I can hammer it out, get like a plus 2 or 3 on it, and it lasts me even longer. Like it's a way to extend my gear past what its life should be, which is in the long run saving me a lot of resources.
Well, and this is a very realistic thing, right? Like it's that handmade edge, like something that's customized and made for you and added to make it in a whole better than anything that you could buy like just at a shop, right?
Exactly. And the prices of the shops in Dragon Quest XI are ridiculous. No wonder everyone's poor.
That very reason in real life is why often people start crafting.
Anyway, sorry, Rafe. We've kind of dominated the conversation here. Please chime in.
Oh, that's all right. That's all right. I think you guys have given us more than enough for our listeners, and I think we're going to actually just kind of wrap it up here at this point. Although, just quick, I have one flash question for y'all, and we'll do it nice and quick. Favorite crafting system in what game? So, Sky, what's yours?
You're mean.
I am.
You. Well, off the top of my head, one of my favorites is actually Atelier Iris Eternal Mana. It is very simple, the system, but one of the things I liked about it is that when you gained a recipe, you had to try switching up the ingredients to see if you could reveal another recipe.
They were also integral to your character's advancement in their development mechanically.
Yeah.
Which was something I haven't really seen a lot of crafting systems do.
Yeah, it was a really good system, and I loved that moment of, oh, I got a new ingredient that's showing up in this list. Let's see if it reveals a new recipe to me. And then it's like, oh, yay, new recipe. I get so excited over the strangest things. But
it promotes stuff like experimentation.
yes, and that's what I loved about it. Like there wasn't, otherwise that system was very simple, but you could go in and just say, okay, let's try every combination of ingredients I can manage in this recipe. Because, you could say you could have one recipe, but it needs some sort of plant, and there's like 7 plants in the list, and 3 of them give you new recipes based on the recipe you already had, just with that plant and the other items.
Yeah, I mean, how many different types of like buns were you able to make off of a single recipe at Blair's shop?
Oh, so many. There were
Yeah,
so
like
many. That game had a ridiculous number of items.
if I remember it right, the back cover of the game actually said it was over 400 different craftable items.
Yeah, it was a huge number. And that's how you found them. They gave you a certain selection of basic recipes to start, and you just went through them and started experimenting with different combinations to see what sort of variations you could come up with.
Yeah, no, absolutely. All right. Irene, what's your favorite?
This is a hard question because a lot of the games I play, like crafting isn't necessarily central to the mechanic. But
Oh, it don't have to be.
Yeah. But like I don't know, I really like the minigame style crafting for Dragon Quest, what they did there, where it's like, yeah, here's like ways you can actually control the output. You actually have a say. It's not just like ingredients. It's like, okay, we're gonna make a little mini game so that when you craft, you can like get a better result, which I thought was really clever. It made it not so two-dimensional.
No, you're right. I enjoyed that one as well. It was a lot of fun. I spent a lot of time smithing stuff there.
Right? And actually in the new Switch version, you can pull out the Fun Size Forge literally anywhere. I get a new recipe and I just check it immediately.
Oh, that's actually really nice. Okay, cool.
They
All
also
right.
decoupled all the cosmetics from equipment.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so that's actually really great. So long as you have the equipment, you have the outfit unlocked.
Oh, wicked, wicked.
Yeah, so you don't have to necessarily equip it to get the outfit.
Cool. Well, as for me, my favorite crafting system actually comes from Rogue Galaxy, and it's probably the most complex out of all of the ones we talked about today, which is weird, but I absolutely adore it. At one point during the game, you are given a factory, like a factory floor, which you can use to craft items, which includes gear, a whole bunch of different things. I know, like, you can actually craft some of the legendary weapons out of it, which was really cool. But the way it works is you actually had to process all of the materials you were using. So you had to set the machines, basically create a factory floor full of all of the devices needed to craft. So if it was a metallic option, you'd have to run it through a smelter. And then you'd also have to have fans along the conveyor belts to cool off the material before it went into something else. So there's all these different things. But the thing is, you had to build it so that everything timed, so that when it all finally had to come together, it all went together at the exact same time. So it was just a lot of fun just trying to kind of figure out the timing, how long your tubes should be when you're combining more than one item, or how long, like how sometimes they have to be a little bit shorter because something's processed through a little faster. So it was a lot of math because all of the devices told you how long it would normally take in the process. So you kind of had to count everything out to make it work if you wanted to be successful at it. But oh man, is it so much fun. All right. Well, that's going to be it for our discussion on crafting mechanisms. Definitely want to hear what you guys think about crafting, whether you like it or if you have a specific game that you're particularly fond of. Please hit us up and let us know. You can get to me through Twitter at Billionaires XP. You can also find me on Instagram at Rafe Thegram and check out some of my streams on Twitch. That's also at Rafe Thegram every Wednesday, 7 p.m. Eastern. Sky, where can everyone find you?
I'm at Skyknight XP on Twitter and Twitch, and I stream on Tuesdays, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I'm also skyknight.xp on Instagram.
Awesome. And Irene, where can everyone find you?
I'm at irogue_XP on Twitter and Twitch. I usually stream on Thursdays. Right now I'm going through a playthrough of God of War for PS4, the latest one. Come join me because that game is amazing. Also, we met Sindri last time, and Sindri is amazing.
Awesome. All right. And we'll have our transcript up for this episode within the next couple of days of its release. So don't forget to check it out on our website. That's xpbillionaires.wordpress.com. And that will be courtesy of our XP Hobo, which you can also find on Twitter at XP_Hobo. And finally, don't forget, we got some updates planned for October. We got a little bit of news coming out in short order. You'll find that on our coffee page, and that's coffee.com/xpbillionaires. Check that out because it'll talk about any special streams we're doing or any big news that the XP Billionaires will be going through. All right, so that's it for this week. And to paraphrase a movie, if you build it, you can keep gaming. We'll see you next week, everybody. Take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye.